The middle-aged man bowed his head slightly, adjusting the faded grey baseball cap that covered nearly half his face. The wrinkled, cheap fabric shirt he wore made him almost unrecognizable even to himself. This was Raymond Ellis, CEO of the renowned restaurant chain Ellis Table, a man once known for tailored suits and signing million-dollar deals with just a nod. But this morning, he was simply Ray, a brand-new server no one had heard of, starting his first shift at the Northlake branch. It used to be the star location of the company, but now it was the problem child giving the executive board endless headaches. As he entered through the employee door, Raymond was greeted by the sound of clanging pans and the sizzling noise of food hitting hot grills, the restaurant slowly waking up before opening hours. No one looked at him. No one said hello. Only the stale smell of used oil and an invisible pressure filled the air. "I'm Ray, the new guy. I was told to find someone named Lena," he said hesitantly to a young cook who was slicing onions with machine-like speed. The cook didn't look up. He just smirked. Good luck. Before Ray could ask anything else, the kitchen door swung open. A woman walked in, her hair tightly pinned up, dark circles under her eyes, holding a crumpled stack of printed schedules. Her voice was sharp as a knife. Rick changed the shift schedule again without telling anyone. 3 people thought they had today off and didn't show up. "I just fixed it. Can someone kindly remind him that the schedule is not a damn game?" That was Lena, early 30s, thin but not fragile. Her steps were firm, her eyes sharp like X-rays. Without anyone introducing her, Raymond knew immediately this was the person truly running the place. "You're Lena, right? I'm Ray, the new hire. No handshake, no smile, no welcome." She glanced at him, an expression not exactly contemptuous, but nowhere near friendly, then turned away. "Follow me. We start in 15 minutes. You're covering tables 9 through 17. We're short-staffed. Read the menu on the wall yourself. Write orders clearly. Don't promise anything to the customers. Don't offer discounts on your own. And don't count on Rick to train you. He usually sleeps until noon." Ray was about to ask about the training process, but Lena cut him off. "We don't have time to babysit. Every new hire thinks they're special. Don't kid yourself." The morning began like a storm. In the first 20 minutes, Ray spilled coffee, delivered the wrong order, and left an elderly woman fuming after waiting too long for her check. Lena didn't miss a single mistake. Every time she passed by, she dropped a cold remark like a dagger. "Table 14 still waiting on the check. Table 17 has been out of napkins for 5 minutes. Ray tried to stay calm, but every step in his stiff new shoes sent sharp pain through his feet. Sweat soaked through his shirt. And Lena, like a relentless shadow, stayed sharp, cold, and unforgiving throughout his shift. It wasn't until he dropped an entire tray of water near the kitchen door that Lena truly stopped. She walked over, eyes cold as steel. "You want someone to slip, fall, and sue the restaurant." She didn't wait for a reply. She shoved a rag into his hand. No need for apologies, no need for excuses. "Here, you either get the job done or you're out." Ray bent down to mop the floor, his hands trembling with embarrassment. He heard her mutter to someone nearby, "Third useless one this month." But in that moment, just for a second, Raymond caught something else in Lena's eyes. Not anger, but exhaustion. A bone-deep weariness that no tough exterior could mask forever. And he knew something wasn't right about this place. He also knew she had just told him to get lost, but he would come back. Because a place on the verge of collapse was still standing thanks to someone silently holding it together. And he was going to find out why, no matter what it took. Raymond returned the next morning, wearing the same cheap shirt and old cap. But this time, he brought 2 trays of hot coffee, one for the kitchen, one for the front-of-house team. No one expected it. A few people smiled awkwardly. Tony, the head chef, raised an eyebrow. "Careful, if you're too nice. Lena's gonna think you're a spy." Lena walked in just then. Her eyes landed on the coffee tray. She said flatly, "Trying to buy friends, just trying to be a teammate." Raymond smiled, keeping his tone light. "There's no such thing as a team here," Lena shot back, then looked down at the reservation book, not even glancing at him. The morning shift began. Raymond worked quietly, but this time not just to learn how to carry trays. He was watching, and he realized people here operated in 2 distinct modes. When Lena was present, the restaurant ran like clockwork. Everything moved smoothly. Orders came out on time, and customers were satisfied. Lena wasn't gentle, but clearly everyone respected her. When Rick, the official manager, emerged from his office with a crooked tie and a phone glued to his ear, the energy dropped. Lena would quietly glide past him, balancing 2 breakfast plates in one hand while fixing the jammed coffee machine with the other. Raymond recognized what he was witnessing, a silent fragmentation. One person running the place without a title, another holding the title but doing absolutely nothing. In that moment, he overheard a young server whispering to a new hire, "Lena's been here 6 years, knows every bolt in this kitchen. Honestly, if it weren't for her, this place would have fallen apart a long time ago." A passing comment. But to Raymond, it was like the first nail hammered into a growing realization. He asked himself, then, why is she still just a regular server who's sitting on the wrong decisions? Right then, Rick wandered over to Raymond, still holding his phone, eyes scanning quickly as if searching for an excuse not to engage. "Oh, the new guy. Yeah, Ray." Raymond nodded. "Any trouble so far? Just trying to learn the ropes." Rick nodded, a perfunctory gesture meant only to end the conversation. He turned and gave a suggestive smirk to the young hostess, brushing her shoulder lightly a moment that made her freeze, then force an awkward smile. Raymond frowned. Just a few hours, and already he saw it all. An irresponsible manager, all show and no action. A system entirely dependent on a woman running on empty. And a team of employees quietly enduring it all, because no one believed anything could change. As Raymond was wiping down a table, Lena passed by. She whispered, almost like she didn't want anyone to hear Rick just comped the entire meal for table 5. Reason. The steak was too rare, even though I clearly remember they ordered it rare. Why not push back? What for? Every time I speak up, I lose another shift. Rick doesn't like being challenged. She walked off, leaving a hollow space in Raymond's chest. For the first time, he felt angry, not because of lost profits, but because someone had to stay silent just to survive. And he began to understand the downfall of a restaurant doesn't begin with bad food. It begins the moment the most competent person in the system no longer feels trusted. The evening shift ended quietly. The last rays of sunlight slanted through a smudged window, casting a pale yellow hue over the tired restaurant. Most staff had already left. Rick had vanished hours ago, same as always. Lena remained behind, cleaning up, checking the orders for the next day, and fixing the reservation system that had glitched at noon. Raymond, still playing the part of the eager new guy, volunteered to help wipe down tables. From across the room, he saw Lena sitting silently in the break room, a dim overhead light casting a long shadow behind her. In her hands was an old photograph, blurred and worn, as if it had been held too many times. He approached quietly, intending just to walk past unnoticed. But a creaky floorboard betrayed him. The sound made Lena flinch. She instantly tucked the photo away, her shoulders stiffening out of pure reflex. "What are you still doing here?" Her voice was sharper than ever, like armor she wore by habit. "I just saw you look tired," Raymond said softly, his eyes drifting to the untouched cup of tea by her side. She let out a laugh, not a joyful one. It was a dry, brittle sound, like someone who had long stopped expecting anyone to care. "Being tired is my default setting." At that moment, her phone vibrated. Lena glanced at the screen, and Raymond saw her entire expression shift, coldness melting into concern. She stepped outside to take the call, but the restaurant was so quiet. Her voice unintentionally echoed back. "Yes, I'm his daughter. How bad was today's episode?" "No, don't call an ambulance. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I can't afford another hospital bill." Lena ended the call and stood still for a few seconds, both hands pressing against her forehead like she was trying to hold something inside from breaking. When she turned around and saw Raymond still standing there, she froze for a moment. "Were you eavesdropping this time?" Her voice wasn't sharp, just tired. Raymond didn't answer. He simply asked gently, "How's your father?" Lena looked up, really looked at him, for the first time in 2 days, as if trying to decide whether or not to tell the truth. Then she let out a sigh. "He's in late-stage Alzheimer's. At night, he usually doesn't recognize me. One time he thought I was someone breaking into his room to steal money." Raymond was speechless, but what struck him even more was when he saw Lena step out with a leftover bagel wrapped in a paper napkin. She caught his gaze. "Don't look at me like that. I haven't been grocery shopping this week, and my dad needs something to eat when he wakes up." "I wasn't judging," Raymond said quickly, sincerely. She looked at him, then suddenly lowered her voice. "I know I'm not easy to be around. But that day, when I told you to get out, it was because I was exhausted. Exhausted from training another new hire every month who can't handle the work and quits. Exhausted from Rick blaming me every time a customer complains. Exhausted from doing the job of the entire management team and still being labeled the problem." Then she laughed again, a mix of bitterness and resignation. This year, I've been tired since 5 years ago. They walked out to the parking lot at the same time. Raymond stopped when he saw her heading toward an old sedan, paint chipping in several spots. Through the window, he noticed a few blankets and a bag of belongings on the back seat. He asked quietly, "Do you live far?" Lena paused for a moment before answering without looking at him. "I don't really have a place right now. The nursing home takes almost my entire paycheck each month. Sometimes I crash at a friend's place, but most of the time, I stay here." Raymond swallowed hard. She wasn't just working herself to the bone. She was living in her car, caring for a terminally ill father, and still showing up every day to keep a broken restaurant from falling apart. Lena checked her watch. "I have to go. My dad needs me." Raymond stood still, watching the old car back out of the lot. The overhead light flickered, casting a glow on the cracked pavement. But something inside him had cracked even deeper, not because of numbers on a report, but because the worth of a human being had been completely overlooked. And from that moment on, Raymond's investigation was no longer just a business mission. It had become a silent promise that this woman would never have to carry the weight of everything alone again. The next morning, Raymond arrived earlier than usual. The restaurant was still blanketed in silence. Only the hum of the freezer and the ticking of the wall clock echoed through the space. He didn't head toward the dining area, didn't stop by the service station. Instead, he walked straight into the walk-in refrigerator. The cold steel door creaked open. A blast of freezing air fogged up his glasses instantly. Raymond slipped on gloves and began inspecting each tray, each box, each production date label, and quickly he frowned. No way. A tray of chicken marked use by the 9th, but today was the 13th. A bottle of sauce separated into layers, giving off a faint, sour smell. A container of pre-boiled vegetables had turned pale, yet was sitting neatly in the ready-to-serve section. This wasn't just negligence. This was a deeply rooted habit. "I saw you walk in here from the lobby. Curious. Are we—" Raymond startled and turned around. It was Tony, the head chef, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I was just trying to understand how inventory is managed here," Raymond said, trying to keep his voice even. Tony walked over, glancing at the tray of chicken Raymond was holding. "Don't ask me about the date. I know it's expired. I know exactly how old it is." "Then why still use it?" Raymond asked, unable to hide the anger in his voice. Tony shrugged, his eyes staring into the void. "Because if we don't have enough ingredients to get through the day. Every month, our budget gets slashed. I've tried proposing a better delivery schedule. Lena even made a full spreadsheet and submitted it, but Rick said we had to maximize everything. You get that, Max? Mize. Everything." His voice was heavy, not angry, but worn down. "If anyone in the kitchen speaks up, they get their shifts changed the next day, hours cut, or worse, they suddenly get a customer complaint and a disciplinary warning." Raymond slowly set the tray down. Everything he had just seen and heard made every number in the sales reports feel meaningless. This wasn't about efficiency anymore. This was a restaurant quietly poisoning itself from the inside through careless decisions, reckless cutbacks, and a chilling silence that no one dared break. Lena submitted a full report to corporate. You know, Tony lowered his voice. She listed expiration dates, projected waste, cost-saving solutions, all of it. Rick ripped it up, called it just another one of her complaints. Raymond didn't respond. His throat tightened. He stepped out of the walk-in and passed through the empty kitchen. On the rack sat the morning delivery orders. Some boxes were still unopened, marked with stickers that read, "Delivered 4 days ago." He spotted Angela, the assistant manager, checking the sales log at the front counter. Suddenly, she pulled out a small red notebook and scribbled something in it without logging it into the register. Raymond froze. A 2-tiered system. One official layer for appearances, one hidden layer for manipulation. In his mind, the pieces began to fall into place. Customers complained about the food, but in the reports, Rick blamed it on staff incompetence. The branch was losing money, but expired ingredients were still being used. Lena's name showed up often in complaint logs, but she was the only one holding the floor together when management was absent. This wasn't an accident. This was a system deliberately bleeding itself dry. And the one person trying to keep it from collapsing was the one constantly blamed. Raymond looked around as the lights slowly brightened the space. The restaurant was still quiet, as if it hadn't fully woken up. He whispered to himself, "If I hadn't come down here today, I would have never known what was really going on." And he knew he couldn't stop now, because the truth ran even deeper. By midday, the restaurant slipped into peak hours. The clatter of dishes, the call-outs of orders, the hum of a full lunch rush, it all filled the space. But Raymond noticed something felt different today. Rick hadn't emerged from his office. Angela wasn't at the register like she usually was, and the workflow was strangely smooth. No yelling, no chaos. People communicated quickly and efficiently. Orders came out on time. Customers didn't complain. At the heart of it all still stood Lena. She unclogged a jammed coffee machine, fixed a reservation conflict, and helped the kitchen explain vegan options to a picky guest, all in the span of minutes. Raymond stood in the corner, observing, like he was watching a symphony unfold. "Careful. If she catches you standing around, you're in trouble," a young server named Lily whispered with a soft laugh. Raymond chuckled, then asked, "Who trained you?" Raymond asked. "Lena," Lily replied. "Not the manager." Lily shook her head. "Rick said he'd train me during my first week, but he was always too busy." Lena noticed, so she stayed late every night to show me how to carry a tray, how to read customer behavior, even how to handle it when someone insults you. She doesn't seem to like new people. Lily tilted her head, then lowered her voice. "I think she just doesn't trust anyone anymore. But I know she's good, really good." Raymond was about to ask more when suddenly a tray of water from the kitchen tipped and crashed to the floor. A new staff member had lost balance, face pale with panic. Raymond tensed, bracing for Lena's fury. But she didn't yell. She walked over, quickly helped mop up the spill, picked up the broken glasses one by one, then turned to the new hire and said softly, "Don't panic. Everyone slips up. But next time, left hand for balance, right hand for weight. Got it. Her tone was gentler than anything he had heard from her before. Raymond was stunned, and as she walked away, he heard her murmur to the new hire, "Just make sure someday you teach someone else the same way. No one gets properly trained around here. But you can be the one who changes that. Not anger, not coldness, but a quiet leader passing down the one value the system had forgotten, kindness, from one person to the next." A little while later, Raymond saw Lena open her wallet. She took out a few small bills and discreetly slipped them into the tip jar for the busboys. He walked over and asked gently, "Did you just put your own money in the tip jar?" Lena shrugged. Fewer customers ordered the high-ticket items today. The kitchen crew's cut will be smaller. I'm just balancing things out a bit. You don't have to do that. Lena looked at him, expressionless. No one tells me to yell every morning either. But I still do. Then she walked away. Raymond stayed where he was. Once again, that weight in his chest rose up, because he understood the coldness others felt from her was really just the last layer of armor left on someone who had once given everything and been abandoned too many times. Around 3 p.m. The restaurant had thinned out. The atmosphere eased, but Raymond felt anything but calm inside. Throughout the entire shift, Rick hadn't stepped out of his office, and Angela, the assistant manager, was too busy chatting with a group of regulars in the corner to notice anyone else. Raymond knew if there was ever a time to enter the office unnoticed, it was now. He made his way to the back hallway, the one with the sign that read, "Managers Only." The office door was slightly ajar. Raymond glanced around once more, then gently pushed it open and stepped inside. The small room was thick with cologne. A sleek wooden desk sat under a glowing computer screen, a few accounting books scattered carelessly across it, and a mini safe left cracked open. He quickly moved to the computer. The screen was unlocked. The sales report popped up immediately, but after just a few clicks, Raymond frowned. The numbers didn't add up. The recorded cash intake in the system was significantly lower than what should have matched the actual order volume, and in a separate open Excel file there was a handwritten-looking ledger listing off the system orders, each marked with strange symbols. He flipped through one of the notebooks on the desk. The first page listed popular menu items next to plus signs, quantities, and beneath it the words, "Deduct cash, end of shift, split 30%. Raymond froze. He understood now. Rick had set up a full system of pocketing cash, likely splitting it with someone, possibly Angela, or someone higher up. Inside a drawer, he found a printed email from the internal HR department. Lena Torres has received 3 warnings within 6 months for non-compliance with management. Below it, a handwritten note. Useful doc if termination justification is needed. Suggested reason: health code violation. Raymond clenched his fists. They were planning to set Lena up. Suddenly the door swung open. Rick stood frozen in the doorway. eyes narrowing. "What are you doing in here?" Raymond quickly slid the notebook behind the computer monitor, trying to keep his voice calm. "I was looking for the shift change procedures. Lily said it's written in the employee handbook. Maybe it's somewhere in the office." Rick stepped in and closed the door behind him, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "That document is posted in the break room. You're not supposed to be in here." "I didn't know. Just got curious." Rick stepped closer, his voice dropping into a low, threatening tone. "You ask too many questions. Ray, I've been watching you, snooping around inventory, chatting with Tony, and now you're in my office. Let me make something clear." He paused, staring straight at Raymond. "In this restaurant, anyone who doesn't know their place doesn't last long." "Got it." Raymond fought the anger rising in his chest. "I just want to do things right. I want to understand how this place operates. Your job is to carry food and keep quiet. Leave the understanding to those in charge." As Raymond stepped out of the office, Rick tossed out one last warning. "If I were you, I'd keep my mouth shut." Raymond walked into the dining area, heart heavy. At that moment, he saw Lena standing across the room, her cold eyes fixed on him. She had witnessed part of the confrontation. As Rick disappeared back inside, Lena approached. "I don't know who you are, but if Rick's got his eye on you, you'd better stay away." "And you?" Raymond asked. "You're staying away too." Lena hesitated. Raymond looked her in the eye. "You know what's happening, and you're still silent. You think I don't want to speak up?" Her voice sharpened. "I've sent reports, written letters, signed complaints. And what happened, I got threatened with transfer, lost shifts, labeled a disruption to team unity." She lifted her chin, eyes burning. "I'm not silent because I'm weak. I'm silent because I have a father waiting for me every night, and I can't afford to lose this job." Raymond stood still. He had nothing left to argue, because she was right. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's survival. But he couldn't stay silent anymore, not after what he'd seen, not after realizing that the only person still trying to preserve a shred of dignity in this place was about to be made the scapegoat. And something inside Raymond had crossed the line of a CEO. He was no longer just representing a corporation. He was standing for justice. That night, Raymond didn't sleep. He couldn't. The image of the notebook detailing the cash skimming lingered in his mind. Rick's threats still echoed in his ears, and Lena's eyes, both defiant and drained, felt like hands squeezing his chest. Before dawn, Raymond drove back to the restaurant. No one was there yet. The entire building was silent and cold, like the shell of a rusted ship. He unlocked the door with his master key card, an executive privilege no one at this branch even knew he had. This time, he didn't go to the walk-in, didn't head to the kitchen. He went straight to the security room where the camera feeds connected directly to corporate headquarters. A small room, locked with a keypad, ignored by almost every employee. Raymond himself had once signed off on the installation budget for the entire system, but probably never really cared what it captured. He powered on the monitors. 16 frames came to life, each one showing a different angle of the restaurant main kitchen, register, walk-in fridge, break room, and Rick's office. Raymond opened the search function and rewound the footage to a month ago. At first, everything looked routine, but then he saw it. Rick pulling cash from the safe, stuffing it into his inner jacket pocket, then jotting something in a small notebook. Angela altering receipts, punching in incorrect menu prices, then laughing with Rick as they closed the books for the night. Rick stealing from the tip jar right after the staff had left for the night. Raymond gripped the armrest of the chair tightly. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was living, breathing evidence. He kept scrolling, and then he stopped. Lena. She appeared after closing hours, long after every other employee had gone home, alone. She scrubbed the kitchen floor, inspected each container of ingredients, flipped over expiration labels, rotated stock so newer items went to the back, just as outlined in the inventory procedures he had once written in the company manual. Yet no one at this branch had ever followed. One night, she opened the tip jar and recounted the money. When she saw the amount was too low, she quietly pulled out her wallet, counted each bill, and slipped the difference in without a word. Another time, after being publicly scolded by Rick for being disrespectful to a customer, Lena retreated to the break room and cried. Just a few minutes, no sobs, just her hand clenched around a tissue and her eyes locked on a photo of her father inside her wallet. Then she wiped her face, stood up, adjusted her uniform, and returned to work like nothing had happened. Raymond didn't know when the tears had started streaming down his own face. And then the final video clip stunned him beyond belief. Rick and Angela in the office whispering, "Blake's corporate is sending an audit soon." Angela said, "No problem." Rick smirked. "We'll pin everything on Lena. I've already prepped her disciplinary file. She's isolated, no allies, no one believes her." Angela nodded. Rick sneered. "Once she's fired, we can shut down this branch. I've already been in talks with Emma's father, the property owner, about buying out the space. The fewer complications, the better." Pause. Raymond leaned back in his chair. His heart was heavy, not just with fury, but with guilt. He was the CEO, the one who built the system, the one who signed off on the oversight measures, the one who had once believed in performance metrics and balance sheets more than the lived stories of people like Lena. In some way, he had helped create the very structure that allowed this to happen. And just then the door burst open. It was Tony, the head chef, the first to arrive every morning. "Ray." "What? What are you doing in the security room?" Raymond turned around and looked him straight in the eyes. A split-second decision, but for the first time. He had nothing to hide. "Raymond Ellis," he said, standing up and extending his hand. "CEO of the Ellis table chain." Tony's jaw dropped. I need to know everything. About Rick, about Angela, about Lena." Tony stared at him for a long moment. Then he sat down. His expression slowly shifted from shock to relief, like a man who had waited years for someone, anyone, to finally listen. "Lena. She's the one holding this place together. She's not perfect, But without her, Ellis Northlake would have shut down 2 years ago. Raymond nodded and pulled up another video, and they watched not to torment themselves, but to begin rebuilding justice from the raw truth. When Tony left the security room to begin prepping the kitchen for the morning shift, Raymond remained, his eyes still fixed on the computer screen. He had just witnessed a reel of damning footage, but to him, it wasn't just evidence. It was the silent confession of a broken system, and today would be the last day it was allowed to exist this way. Raymond picked up his personal phone and opened the internal contacts list, calling only the people he trusted most. Call to Jill, Senior Director of HR. I need an emergency termination process. 2 employees. Complete confidentiality. Prepare the documentation and severance agreements for this morning. Call to Marcus, Corporate Attorney. I have video evidence, accounting records, and verbal confirmations involving financial fraud, falsifying reports, and conspiring to discredit a staff member to seize control of this location. Meet me at Northlake at 8 a.m. Call to Fiona, Head of Operations Prep, a rapid response team, POS upgrade, kitchen repairs, new equipment, and a full retraining framework. I want this branch to be the prototype for our turnaround model in 14 days. Each call lasted only a few minutes, but after every "yes, sir," Raymond knew something bigger was already in motion. 8 a.m. He returned to the restaurant not in the cheap uniform he once wore, but in a sharp charcoal suit, a silver watch on his wrist, the true uniform of someone who carried the highest responsibility. Beside him were Jill from HR, Marcus from legal, and 2 security officers from corporate headquarters. They walked in at exactly 8:15 before the restaurant had even opened for the day. The dining room was silent. Rick poked his head out from the office, his face shifting instantly from surprise to fear. "We're not open yet. Can I help you with something?" Raymond stepped to the center of the floor. His voice rang clear, calm, and commanding. "Rick Caldwell. Yes, I'm Raymond Ellis, CEO of the Ellis Table Restaurant Group." Rick's face went pale. His eyes blinked rapidly, darting from Marcus to the security uniforms standing behind them. Raymond didn't give him time to react. "You and Angela are hereby terminated, effective immediately, for acts of embezzlement, falsifying records, food safety violations, system manipulation, and deliberately attempting to frame a subordinate." Jill stepped forward with 2 thick termination folders. The security officers silently moved in. "If you refuse to sign, the documents will go directly to criminal prosecution," Raymond added. Rick froze. Angela turned pale, trying to protest, but Marcus pulled out the camera footage report and matching signatures. Any argument dissolved instantly. "You will both be escorted out. Any further attempt to access company property will be treated as a legal offense." Raymond didn't raise his voice. He wasn't angry. He spoke like someone exhausted, someone who had watched honesty be dismissed for far too long. Rick looked around, searching for an ally, but no one stepped forward. Lily, the server, stood behind the counter, hand over her mouth. Tony, from the kitchen door, stood with arms crossed, his eyes cold as ice. When Rick and Angela were escorted out, Raymond turned to face the staff. "We will temporarily close for 2 weeks to restructure. During that time, all employees not involved will continue to receive full pay. No one is losing their job." The room burst open like a wave breaking after years of being held back. "I will not be hiring a new manager." The room fell silent. "Because I believe the person who has held this branch together for the past 3 years has been right here all along." All eyes slowly turned toward the empty chair at the far end of the dining room. Raymond looked around and asked, "Where's Lena?" Tony spoke up. "She called in, said she'd be late. Her father had another episode last night. When that happens, she doesn't sleep." Raymond nodded. In his heart, he knew the most important moment was still on its way. The door swung open. Lena stepped inside her uniform shirt, half-buttoned, hair pinned up in a rush, dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep. In her hand was a worn-out handbag with a small medicine bottle peeking out from the top. She froze in the doorway. The atmosphere in the restaurant was different. Staff were gathered, whispering. Rick and Angela, gone. At the center stood Raymond, but no longer Ray, the clumsy new hire. He was Raymond Ellis, CEO of the entire Ellis Table Group. Lena said nothing. Her face stiffened. "What's going on?" she asked, voice low. Tony answered softly. "All staff meeting." Tony said softly, "You should take a seat." Lena slowly made her way toward the meeting table. Her eyes never left Raymond. "You're not the new hire." "No." Raymond nodded. "I'm the CEO. You've been watching us. I've been observing." Because no one at corporate was willing to hear this branch's cries for help. Lena let out a dry, bitter laugh, tinged with anger. "So now what? Shut us down?" Rick said. "This would happen. That one day you'd all come in and wipe everything clean." Raymond shook his head. "Rick has been terminated. Angela too. Both will face legal investigation for financial misconduct and systemic abuse." Lena froze. Her eyes widened slightly, though she fought to keep her composure. "And then what? You'll send in another perfect manager, and we'll start the whole mess over again." Raymond looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said slowly. "I don't need someone new." He placed a dark blue folder on the table and gently slid it toward her. "I need the person who's kept this restaurant standing for the past 3 years." Lena looked at the folder. She didn't open it. "I'm just a server. Someone who sometimes loses her temper. Someone who once told you to get out. And I stayed." Raymond said, smiling. He nodded toward Jill, the HR director, who stepped forward with another document, an official offer for the position of general manager, including double her current salary, full authority over staff, flexible hours, and health insurance coverage to support her father's care. Lena's hands trembled as she opened it. When she saw the number, her eyes welled up. "This can't be real. That's triple what I make now." "The only mistake we made," Raymond said gently, was not recognizing your value sooner. The room fell into silence. Then, from the back, Lily spoke up. You have to say yes. No one deserves this more than you. Tony nodded. The other employees, some nodding, some letting out quiet. Emotional laughs formed a presence that had never existed here before recognition. Lena clenched her hands, looked around the room, then back at Raymond. Why? Why would you do this? After everything, Raymond didn't flinch. Because you were right. You had every right to be angry, every right to be tired, every right to shut down. But through all the chaos, you stayed. You kept scrubbing the kitchen, dropping tips into jars, and teaching a brand new server how to stand tall. He paused, then said, You once told me I didn't understand, and you were right. I used to think running a restaurant chain meant managing numbers. Now I understand. Sometimes the only thing keeping a place from falling apart is a person no one ever bothered to remember. Lena's throat tightened. She looked down at the offer letter. Her eyes began to glisten. A single tear dropped silently onto the edge of the table, not from pain, but from the overwhelming feeling of finally being seen. She whispered, When do I start? Raymond smiled. Whenever you're ready. 3 months later, Raymond returned to the North Lake branch for the first time since the restructure. No announcement, no ribbon cutting, no entourage. Just him, the man once told to get out now, returning with quiet gratitude. When he stepped inside, Raymond could hardly believe his eyes. The once gloomy, cold space now glowed with warm light. Hanging plants draped from the ceiling, soft jazz mingled with the gentle hum of diners' laughter. The service staff wore new uniforms, gliding through the space like a well-rehearsed ballet. Good afternoon, sir. Do you have a reservation? The hostess asked with a smile. Raymond smiled back. I'd just like to sit at the counter. As a regular guest. He was led to a spot near the open kitchen where he could see the whole restaurant unfold. Every table had service at just the right moment. Every guest looked relaxed and content. Plates were elegantly presented, dishes arriving with precision and rhythm. A restaurant once rated 2 stars now looked like a 5-star gem in full stride. And then he saw her. Lena emerged from the kitchen not in a wrinkled server's uniform, but in a crisp navy blouse with a new name tag that read, Lena Torres, General Manager, Hello. Her face was brighter now, no longer marked by exhaustion. Her hair flowed softly, tied neatly in the back, and her eyes, no longer guarded or defensive, held the calm confidence of someone who finally felt like they belonged. She bent down to chat with a little girl at a family table, gently handed her a birthday cupcake with a lit candle, then patted the father on the shoulder like an old friend. The bartender turned to Raymond with a smile. She does that for every kid who has a birthday. It's small, but it's what keeps families coming back. Raymond nodded, eyes still on Lena. When she finally noticed him, Lena walked over surprised, smiling. You should have told me you were coming. I would have had the kitchen prepare something special. If I told you, Raymond replied, I wouldn't get to see how things really are now. They shook hands, but this time there was no barrier between CEO and employee. Only a man who had walked through fire and another who had seen that fire burn silently for far too long. Lena gave him a tour of the restaurant through the newly upgraded kitchen, where Tony, now officially head chef, gave a cheerful wave. "We're saving 30% on electricity with the new equipment," he said, "and quality's still top-notch." She pointed to a wall-mounted digital dashboard, real-time data flashing across the screen. Customer satisfaction, 91%. Staff turnover rate, 3%, down from 39%. Average revenue, plus 26% compared to last quarter. Raymond raised his eyebrows, impressed. That's more than impressive. But what I really want to know is, how are you? Lena led him into the office, the one that had once been Rick's lair, now transformed with photos of staff, employee of the month boards, and a framed picture of her father. He's in a much better nursing facility now, thanks to the new insurance plan. He's finally getting the care he needs. Recognized me 3 days in a row. Raymond looked at the old photo, an elderly man with silver hair and a gentle smile. "And the nights in your car," he began. Lena laughed for the first time, a real laugh he had ever heard from her. "I managed to rent a small apartment nearby, nothing fancy, but it's peaceful. And I started studying business management online. I got a small scholarship from the company." "Why?" Raymond asked. "Because I want to understand this company from your perspective. So next time someone needs to stand up for the workers, I won't have to wait for someone else to do it." Raymond nodded, unable to hide the pride in his eyes. As they returned to the dining area, he noticed a small plaque newly mounted near the entrance. The inscription read, "Success isn't what you achieve, it's who you lift up with you." "A new motto?" Raymond asked. "No," Lena replied. "Just a reminder, for me, and for everyone here." Raymond looked at her, and he knew the woman who had once been cast aside, who cried alone in the walk-in fridge and slept in her car, was now leading an entire community with her heart. Before leaving, Raymond lingered for a while, sitting quietly at the bar, the same bar where he had once fumbled to balance a tray, once served watery coffee and got complaints, once heard Lena snap, "Don't get in our way." Now, everything around him had changed, but the feeling was strangely familiar. A little girl ran past, holding a half-eaten dessert, shouting back to her mom, "Mom, the manager knows my name." A cook stepped out into the dining room and shook hands with an elderly guest, same as always, Mr. Barry. One hot soup and the window seat. Raymond heard laughter, friendly greetings, people calling each other by real names, not table numbers or clock-in codes. And he realized what Lena had built here wasn't just a model restaurant, it was a community, a place where people truly felt seen and needed. Lena walked out to see him off, holding a small box in her hand. "I know you like the cinnamon apple pie," she smiled. "Back when you were still Ray, you kept eyeing it all night, but never took one." Raymond chuckled. "That time, you scolded me for wiping the table the wrong way," Raymond said, smiling. "And now you've placed me in a role I never thought I deserved." Lena replied, her voice soft. "It's not because I'm kind," Raymond said, his eyes steady. It's because you're brilliant. Because you were the only one who didn't walk away even when everything tried to push you out. Lena slowly nodded. She didn't say anything more, but her gaze, calm, unwavering, said it all. I understand, and I'm ready. Raymond turned and walked toward his car, but before getting in, he glanced back one last time through the glass. Inside, Lena was leaning down, saying something to Lily. Tony was adjusting a kitchen towel on a young cook's shoulder. A customer waved at the bartender. Everyone was moving in rhythm. No one was alone. No one had to carry the weight alone. And Raymond realized, sometimes you don't fix a system with a new dashboard. You fix it by placing your trust in the right hands. In the woman everyone thought was just a server. In the one who quietly added money to the tip jar when no one noticed. In the one who lived in her car, worked double shifts, cared for her ailing father, and still taught others how to stand tall. He got into the car, but didn't start it right away, silently. He opened his phone and typed a line into his personal notes, the place where he saved thoughts worth holding on to after every journey. A restaurant doesn't stand because of polished floors, trendy menus, or state-of-the-art kitchens. It stands because someone chose to stay when everything else wanted to fall apart. And I found that person not in a resume. Not in a performance report, but in a quiet evening, when she packed the leftover bread to take home to her father. Raymond closed his phone. This time, he wasn't leaving with a revenue report, but with the belief that some things worth saving don't need restructuring. They just need someone brave enough to see them and hold on. In a world where numbers and reports seem to define a person's worth. There are stories that never show up on a spreadsheet. No one documented the nights Lena stayed behind to scrub the kitchen after every other staff member had gone home. No one recorded the time she wrapped the last piece of bread to bring to her father with dementia, because there was no grocery money left. No one handed her an award for teaching a new server how to carry a tray with both hands, centered and balanced, not with scolding eyes, but with patient ones. She, the one once labeled the problem, too difficult, hard to manage, was the one who held the entire system together. She didn't deliver profits in explosive quarters, but she brought something rarer: trust and kindness. When Raymond Ellis walked out of that restaurant that day, he knew he hadn't just restructured a branch. He had redefined something. That leadership isn't about who gives the best orders. It's about who quietly carries the heaviest weight, even when no one asks them to. 3 months later, Lena was no longer just the official general manager. She became the model for Ellis Table's new leadership training program. She launched the Guiding Hand initiative, where every new employee is paired one-on-one with a seasoned staff member. She hosted No One Eats Alone dinners, monthly meals, where elderly customers were invited to dine for free, as long as they had a story to share. She didn't chant slogans. She didn't need speeches. She simply did the work as she always had, only now. The light finally shone on her. And Raymond, the man who once believed that a CEO should be the one who knows the most, now understood that a true leader is the one who listens the hardest, even if it's late. Because a system only becomes truly great when the smallest person in it is never left behind. A company is only worth being proud of when it can boldly say, "We don't just train high performers. We listen to the ones who were never listened to." And someone like Lena, once an invisible server, who slept in her car, who was dismissed, overlooked, and nearly erased, is now the one lighting the path for dozens of others. If you're an employee who's been underestimated, someone quietly staying late, sharing your lunch, carrying a household on your back, please believe this. You are being seen, maybe not yet by your manager, maybe not yet by the system you work in, but the world still needs you. And somewhere out there, someone like Raymond is quietly learning how to lead again, not through power, but through humility. If you are a leader, please step out of the office once. Sit at the table where a server is forcing a smile through sleep-deprived eyes. Step into the kitchen where someone is cooking lunch for 100 people while unsure if they can afford dinner for themselves. And ask, what today made you feel invisible? You might be surprised, because sometimes that one question alone is what keeps someone from walking away. Lena didn't change the world. She changed a single corner of it, but enough to help others step out of the dark. And sometimes that's all the world needs.